Good day, this is Steve Anderson, and welcome to our pre-webinar. We're going to start here at the top of the hour. I have a few little housekeeping items to go through as well as some announcements. So if this is the first time you've joined us, you are in listen-only mode. That means that you should be able to hear me loud and clear. You are on mute, so as to give everybody the opportunity to hear clearly. So at any time, if you have any questions that you'd like addressed or anything at all, you can go to the question bar in your control panel on your computer screen, and you can type in any question you have there, and we will address those as we go along, or if it has to do with the content, then we'll address those at the end of the presentation. So we'll start here in just a couple of minutes. I wanted to go through a couple of Crown Counsel related announcements. Lots of great stuff going on the Smiles for Life front. We have the campaign, of course, going strong. We have gone beyond the $1 million mark, of course, and I just threw up a nice little scoreboard there of we call it the leaderboard. And so congratulations to everybody who's making such a huge difference. In addition, we just sent out what I'm calling it a booster video. So we did a little bit of training, Smiles for Life related training that you're welcome to share with your team. I've got a picture of that at the top of the screen. So in your next team meeting, it's very short and it walks through some specific things you can do to do everything you can to make sure a Smiles for Life patient becomes a patient for life in your practice. So keep up the great work. Dentistry's biggest charity campaign continues, making a huge difference all over the country. Next, the Crown Counsel annual event coming up January 30th through February 1st in Nashville, Tennessee. This will be the 25th annual event, promises to be one of the best ever. In fact, we just had a meeting this morning, and we have some really fun things that are in the works for the annual event. So if by chance you have not registered for the annual event, you can go to ccannualevent.com for details and register. Nashville, Tennessee is the destination, and as always, when we're in Nashville, we're going to have a big Smiles for Life benefit charity concert at the Mother Church of Country Music, the Ryman Theater, during the annual event. So we look forward to having you with us for the event of all events in dentistry every year. Also, just a quick update on total patient service related seminars. You can go to totalpatientservice.com for dates and locations all over the country for Total Immersion, which is the basic training course that we recommend that all Crown Counsel practices engage in. It's really the starting point of where the Crown Counsel got started and basic training for any practice. No More Hygiene courses, which is the leading hygiene course based on the latest science in periodontal treatment. And then finally, the Leadership Academy for dentists and team members that want to take their team to the top. So you can go to totalpatientservice.com for those dates and locations. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar today. 50 ways to pay, expanding patient payment options for greater treatment plan acceptance. Let me just share where today's topic came from. Financial arrangements are always one of the key places in terms of patient engagement. Once the patient has indicated that they want to move ahead with treatment, then figuring out how to make it all work in their budget and with their financial situation is one of the key make or break parts of case acceptance. And so typically when we present to practices at seminars and meetings around the country, I will have financial coordinators and pretty much anybody that's in the audience write down payment options. What are the different payment options? And typically, I think the most I've ever gotten out of an audience was maybe about 12, 12 different ways that patients can pay. We're going to talk about 50 today, 50 different ways that are available for patients to pay for treatment that will expand your treatment acceptance success. What I'll say here is that what we take for granted here with this as we start is that you have done all of the things on the upswing so that the patient is engaged, they understand the treatment, they want the treatment, and now it's just a matter of figuring out how to make the financial piece of it work. So just a quick little bit of background, especially for those of you that might be new to us. Let me just share the relationship between the Crown Counsel and Total Patient Service. And I'll give you just since the content today comes from both organizations. So the best word picture I can share with you is that we are very much like a dental practice in that what we do at Total Patient Service is very much like the restorative part of your practice. Total Patient Service goes into practices and through a series of seminars and on-site training, we work with teams to restore their practice, so to speak, to optimal levels of patient service and case acceptance. So it's an intensive process where we're really working to take things to a higher level in the systems that are implemented in everything that we do to boost case acceptance, like financial arrangement. Crown Counsel is to your practice like hygiene is to your patients, which is Crown Counsel is the place where practices come to on a daily basis to build and maintain a culture of success, to keep that culture healthy. So it's a place where patients love to come and team members love to work. So hand in hand, our two organizations help practices in both of those areas, and providing a great patient experience doing financial arrangements is a joint mission. So hopefully that helps clarify how the two organizations, so you'll hear me refer to both as we move forward today. So 50 ways to pay. Get out your pen and paper. There will be a couple of resources available at the end of the webinar. One is this webinar is being recorded. It will reside at crowncounsel.org in the webinar section under the training tab, so that if you have other team members that you want to share this with, you can go back and watch it. I'll also provide a reference sheet for third-party lenders that we'll talk about today, and that will be available at the end of the webinar, and I'll share with you how you can access that as well. So 50 ways patients have paid. If you want to have some fun with this, go for it and take notes, and because we will actually go through 50 different ideas here that will help your financial arrangement system. All right, so rapid fire here. First, we're going to start with the most obvious, which is patients can always pay with cash. In a society now that is almost going cashless, making sure that you have petty cash on hand to give change so that patients indeed can pay with cash. Even though it's becoming less and less in many parts of the country, depending on your patient base, it can be a preferred way to pay for treatment. So make sure that you have everything in place for them to do that. You can make change. You can give them a receipt, a cash receipt, so that you keep your accounting straight and that you have a way of tracking that they actually paid and that it's been received and they acknowledge that. So again, we're going to start with the most basic, but sometimes the most basic methods get forgotten. So make it easy for your patients to pay with cash. Next, check. Again, checks are starting to go away. I have, as many of you know, I have a few kids at home. And now when you go to open up, at least the last time I went to open up a bank account for one of my teenagers, they will not even do a checking account. So everything is they want to do everything with a debit card. In the banking industry, the basic philosophy is, or feeling is, that checks are going to go away at some point, and people still want to pay with check. So make it easy for them to do that. Here are some suggestions that should be in place, or that if you don't, that will make it easier. Desktop check clearing. I almost assume that everybody is doing this now, It is the easiest way to get the money in your account immediately. So it is, instead of having to run to the bank every day, you can clear those checks, whether they're insurance checks or patient checks, right there on the spot in your practice. So the technology's been around for a long time. Most banks provide it, so you can just call your bank and ask them if you don't have that already. If you'd like an additional resource, our resource partners with Clearant have some desktop check clearing options, and you can contact Eric Anderson, and no, he is not a relative, but Eric's email address is eanderson@clearant.com, and ask for their check clearing technology, and they can give you prices and exactly how it all works. But it is, in my mind, every practice ought to have check clearing. The technology is relatively inexpensive. It saves hours of going to the bank, and the money goes directly into your account. So it just makes everything that much easier. So take checks and clear them desktop. Next, debit cards. The reason I added debit cards here is that for most banks, when you clear a debit card, it is less expensive than clearing a credit card. So one of the things that we recommend is that if you have control, ask for the debit card first. If that's an option, debit cards are preferred in terms of the cost of clearing them over credit cards in many cases. So debit cards rule. Then, of course, credit cards, and I've split these up for a couple of different reasons. The philosophy here is make it easy for patients to pay. So we're trying to open up the door here to provide as many different payment options. I think we've all had the experience of going to a merchant or shopping someplace, and you pull out a credit card that is not accepted by that establishment, and so you have to dig for something else. So make it easy. So MasterCard, of course, Visa, obviously, and Discover is if you're signed up to accept Visa and MasterCard, taking Discover is just as easy. And I've also added American Express. So again, occasionally I'll hear an argument about, well, it would cost more to clear with American Express, and I want to make it easy for patients to pay. So our recommendation is take all of them. You have to make your own decisions, but our recommendation is make it easy for patients to pay. And so accepting American Express, Visa, MasterCard, and Discover just makes it that much easier and lowers the obstacle to anybody who is trying to do business with you. If you'd like a credit card merchant fee analysis, again, our resource partners at Clearant are happy to do that. There's Eric's contact information again. Wherever you're doing whoever you're clearing your credit cards through, they can do an analysis to show you where you might be able to save money, where are you compared to kind of where the market is. It's something we don't think about a lot, and it's constantly ticking there in the background. So it's a good idea to have that analysis done on a regular basis. So you can email Eric and just ask him, just tell him you're a Crown Counsel practice and that you'd like a credit card merchant fee analysis, and he will send you back what the things you need to know and what he needs to be able to do that analysis. Next is related but different is doing a direct debit from your patient's checking or savings account. So again, that functionality is available either through your bank or Clearant, again, can help you with that. But it's just an additional way to make it easy for patients to pay if that is a preferred method for doing it. Recently, everybody's had this consumer experience is, Apple has come on strong with payment options. So being able to make it easy for patients to pay with their Apple Pay, to have that facility. So whoever you're clearing credit cards through can help you with that, that you make it so that, there's actually they don't actually have to produce their credit card, but they can do it right there with their phone. So having that facility to be able to accept that, again, just makes it easier for patients to pay. One of the things any of you that are listening that have ever traveled outside the U.S., especially to Europe, know that the way we accept credit cards in the United States is way behind the rest of the world. We're eventually catching up, but in the rest of the world, especially in Europe, your credit card never leaves your site. They clear everything right there in front of you. And this is Apple's attempt at making credit card information more secure. So again, if your patients have that capability, then make it easy for them to pay and accept Apple Pay. Square. Everybody's had that experience. It's another alternative to accepting credit cards. It's actually pretty easy to sign up. And so depending on what your volume is of accepting credit cards, this is another option if you're not accepting quite as many, but they've come on strong as a way to clear credit cards right there at the point of purchase. And the patient retains control of the card. It's certainly another option. All right, let's talk about insurance. Insurance is a way to pay. So question here is, what's your attitude and what are your systems for processing and accepting insurance? Today, we're not going to have a debate about whether you should be a provider or not. I'll provide you a resource for that. Dental insurance is a way to pay. And so being very clear on how you deal with your patient's insurance is obviously a big part of financial arrangements. So let's talk about a couple of options here. Here are some verbal skills as a reminder when you're dealing with insurance. We prefer to talk about or refer to your patient's insurance as your dental insurance savings or your dental benefits savings. So we like to frame it in a way that it's a positive for the patient. It's a benefit for them and it does save them money. And so anytime you're doing financial arrangements and making it easier for them to pay, we like to refer to it as your insurance savings. So if I were doing the financial arrangements discussion, then we would show them what the total amount is. So I would say, your total amount today is $1,500. Your insurance, your dental insurance savings is $500. And then what I would just, in that area, just as a footnote, we recommend that you eliminate this term. We hear this a lot, is by saying, your insurance is only going to cover $500. Okay, so that is a phrase that we like to eliminate. It's what we call limiting language. So instead, say your dental insurance savings instead of your insurance will only cover, so your insurance savings. Now, here's another one, just as a reminder, is we like to refer to it as the patient portion or your portion, not your out-of-pocket. So your out-of-pocket, that's a term that's crept into dentistry, and it creates an interesting word picture, a vision that is not necessarily one that I think we want patients to have. So it's your portion, not your out-of-pocket. So those are just two verbal skills reminders as it has to do with talking about your patient's insurance. We have dealt with the insurance topic. We deal with it on a regular basis. And if you'd like to dig deeper into your relationship with dental insurance, we recently did a Crown Counsel webinar entitled The Secrets of Going Insurance Independent. And it walks through how you go through and make that decision. The title, the banner title is, Do You Take My Insurance? So you can access that at crowncounsel.org. If you're familiar with the site, you go to the training tab and then go under webinars, and then you can actually search by topic. So again, do you take my insurance? If you'd like a method to go through to make the decision about your relationship with insurance, that webinar goes through some specifics on how you go about making that decision so you make it wisely. Next. Flexible spending accounts. A lot of these next things that I'm going to talk about are ones that are often forgotten, but and sometimes patients forget about them. And so one of the things that I recommend is if you have a list, a reference sheet of when you're doing financial arrangements. So when you're having this discussion, then you can do some what ifs, or how about this? You can give them some ideas, because a lot of times patients forget a lot of the resources that they have. So today, flex spending accounts have become very popular, where patients can set aside money out of their paycheck every month, and then they can spend that money on health-related expenses, so before tax. That's a resource. Some people have it and they've forgotten that they have it, or they may have related it to more medical related issues and they can use it for dentistry as well. So flex spending accounts are great. Health savings account, they're still around. They, by their own admission, when the government set up health savings accounts, it did not get as much traction as they imagined it would, and they're still around. So again, that's one of the things you can ask your patients about if they have a health savings account. It's another source of a way to pay. 401k. So the larger the treatment, then obviously the more involved the financial discussion is going to be. Many, if not most, 401k plans have the ability to that whoever has the 401k can borrow the money from their 401k. So the thing that's cool about this is the way they're set up is if you borrow from your 401k and there's parameters around it, then essentially you're the bank. So you're paying yourself interest instead of paying a third party or a bank interest. So it's become, based on what the parameters and the rules are, it's really, it's cash that's available, where it's actually a benefit. If you need the money and want to move forward with something, you can borrow the money and pay yourself back within the parameters that they set, and you're actually paying yourself interest. So it's actually a great source of financing, especially for bigger cases. If people really want to do it, which we hope they have at this point, if we're having this discussion, again, it's one more suggestion. If they have a 401k and if their employer, their administrator, what they have set up to that. Many people are not even aware that that's available. Many employers have financing that's available to their employees. So they can actually go to their employer, and the employer will actually has a program set up where they can borrow money from their employer, and then it's taken out of their paycheck. So again, that's a source. Many people, some know they have it, some don't, but it's one on the list. Tax refund is always one, especially one thing to keep in mind is we're kind of obsessed in America with April 15th, because that is, that's the day everybody thinks that your taxes are due. One thing to keep in mind is that the April 15th date is the date that taxes, that's when the clock starts ticking. So that's when you're supposed to pay them. Many people, a lot of people, do not actually file their tax return until later in the year. So they'll file an extension, and then they may not actually file their tax return until June, July, August. For many, they don't even get around to doing it until October. So while we make a big deal about April 15th, tax refunds are going on all year. So again, it's another one to have on the radar as a possible way to pay. If you've been in dentistry for any period of time, I'm sure you've had the experience of a patient that shows up with their gold stash. Our Tommy Neighbors, who is our clinical director and founder of the No More Hygiene program, one of his favorite stories is the patient who paid for all of his veneers with gold. And he had a lot of it done. The guy actually had the gold in his freezer frozen in water. He had to go home and defrost it before he paid it. So again, another option, but again, what I'm assuming here is that you've done all the work so that the patients want the treatment. Now you're just trying to figure out how to help them pay for it. Dividing up payments. So there's a whole discussion in terms of financial arrangements in terms of how you set it up. And so many times you can divide up payments so that if the total amount is an issue, then you can divide it up into 3 payments or 2 payments to make it a little bit easier on their budget. I'm going to talk about some recommendations here in terms of payment plans. We don't necessarily recommend that you become the bank. You need to make sure that all the financial arrangements are taken care of. If they do need financing, we'll talk about that in just a moment in terms of sources for third-party financing. There is one area that we're going to recommend that you do be the bank, and I'll share with that in just a moment. But sometimes by dividing up the payments, you can make it more affordable for them. Prepaying with a discount. So this one is one we recommend is if one of the financial arrangements options is that if they want to pay 100% of the treatment for the treatment today, again, many times for especially bigger cases, that you'll give them a courtesy of 5%. So prepay with a discount. A lot of times that is very attractive to patients who want to save some money. And so one of the entrees to that is to say to the patient when you're doing financial arrangements, would you be interested in saving some money? So after you go through the total amount, what the insurance savings will be and what their portion is, then you can shift to the payment options and say, would you be interested in saving some money? And then you can go through the payment options. And this is certainly one of them, if you choose to do this, is making it easy for people and giving them an incentive to pay for it 100% up front. It's always nice to have a month where you have greater than 100% collections, and this is one way to do it. This next one's one of my favorites. This is one that we have talked about and trained for years. In fact, we've incorporated it into the Smiles for Life campaign. So those of you that do Smiles for Life, and if you don't, we highly recommend it. It's dentistry's largest charitable campaign. So this is how the $1 a day works. On your, and I'm specifically going to apply this to whitening. So on your health history form, everyone has a whitening question. And the question is on your form, if you could whiten your teeth for an investment anyone could afford, would you be interested? Our experience is that everybody will check yes, unless, you know, they're denture wearers. So everybody's interested in having white teeth. So this is exactly the way that you phrase it on your health history form. If you could whiten your teeth for an investment anyone can afford, would you be interested? Then the chairside discussion is this, is to say, I see you're interested in whitening your teeth. Would you consider $1 a day to be a pretty reasonable investment? Okay, that's the question. Of course, everybody's going to say yes. You know, $1 a day is a pretty reasonable investment. Then you continue by saying we have a great program where if everything is in order in terms of your dental health, we can get started today whitening your teeth, and it's just $30 per month or $1 a day for, and then you do the math depending on how much you charge for whitening, for X number of months. How does that sound? Okay, so basically, yes, and I'm going to explain how this works in just a moment. Yes, you're going to allow your patients to pay over time for whitening, and yeah, you're going to be the bank. And here's the idea behind this is whitening is an entry procedure. That's fee for service. The cost of doing it, the whitening materials are relatively low, so your risk is very low, and it gives them an easy way to say yes to an elective procedure that then also opens the door to other cosmetic conversations. So that's how we do this chairside. Now, how do you make it work? Here's how you make it work. So again, Clarent has a facility, has technology where you can have an online credit card processing terminal where basically you can go in and you can program in the patient, their credit card information, and the date when you want their card to clear each month and for what amount and for how many months. And then that program will automatically clear their credit card every month. You don't have to do anything. It'll automatically clear it. And then what you get back is a report of the cards that were cleared and who the patients were, so you can go in and into your system and you can book those collections. And it just makes it easy to do this. So we do this for Smiles for Life, which is they can opt to have a payment plan. So we've done that. It's just an easy way to get people involved in one of the best entry procedures in dentistry. One other suggestion here, you can also use this same system if you are doing in-office ortho. So for example, if you're doing if you're doing Invisalign or any ortho related procedure where they're paying over time for that procedure, so they're coming back for their next trays and you've set up some kind of a payment plan, you can use the same technology where they just pay each month and it's automatic on the same day every month, so that their payment is not necessarily attached to the day they come in. So that just keeps things very clear. The financial arrangements, and I'll just mention this, financial arrangements should always be separate from the service date. So when you're doing your financial arrangements, you're going to talk about when things will be paid and how they'll be paid. And that doesn't have anything to do with the date they're going to come in. The money should all be taken care of before they have treatment started. All right, so that's how the $1 a day thing works. It's again, whitening only. Don't do this for any other procedure. You can consider doing it for ortho as well, if they are coming back on a regular basis. So again, you can contact Eric for information on that, and he can walk you through the details on how to get that set up. PayPal. So many people today, because of our online world, have a PayPal account already set up. It's on their phone. So again, it's another easy way to make it easy for patients to pay. PayPal also has the facility to borrow money. So that's a whole other option that is now available to people who use that as a payment source. They have the option of paying it over time through PayPal. So if that's not one that you've incorporated yet into your financial arrangements protocol, it's a great source for financing that many people already have at their disposal. All right, let's talk about third-party financing. We finally gotten to third-party financing. So our recommendation has always been that you have at least 3 sources of third-party financing. 1, everybody ought to have at least 1. 2 is better. 3 is optimal, 3 or more. Purpose being that because of the nature of third-party financing, different sources have different parameters. And so one, you may have a second one that will accept them when the first one doesn't. So having more than one source is the recommendation. I'm going to walk through a number of them here, some that you've heard of, some that you may not have heard of. And I've got about 7, 8, 9. We're gonna go through about 10 different sources for third-party financing. I will say that this is an ever-changing environment. Sources come and sources go. And so we'll talk about that, but that's another reason why having more than one is a good idea. For starters, Care Credit, obviously. Care Credit is the longest enduring source of patient finance in the industry. Back when Care Credit's been now on the market for, I believe, almost 30 years. Started out as DenCharge. It was a dental specific product, and then they expanded into other industries. Other healthcare related industries. One of the reasons that Care Credit has endured for so many years where other sources of patient finance have not is they have over years changed their financing source. So the brand has stayed the same. where they get their money has changed over the years. So they have been able to maintain the brand. So they're the standard. I would say if you're in dentistry, everybody should have Care Credit. That's a given. How you utilize it is the other piece of it. So here is a recommendation. There's a contact on your screen here, Samir Bashan with Care Credit. There's his email address right there. If you would like some more support from Care Credit, or you don't know who your rep is, contact Samir and he will buy your lunch. So tell him that you're a part of this webinar today with the Crown Counsel and that you would like to schedule a lunch and learn with the local Care Credit rep in your area. They will bring lunch in to your Crown Counsel office and give you an update on how to use Care Credit and how to better offer third-party financing to your patients. So in case you are not a believer in a free lunch, there is such thing as a free lunch, and Care Credit will provide that for you. So that's a nice benefit from them. You can just email him and they will send somebody in just to give you an update on third-party financing. Lending Club. So there's been some changes here. Lending Club is a newer brand name in dentistry. They bought up some other third-party lenders. So a couple of parameters are just things about Lending Club. No sign-up fee for the office. There's no monthly minimums in terms of how much you have to use them. They will finance anything from $499 all the way up to $50,000. Patient rates, interest rates can be as low as 4.99% as of today, and they can get extended terms up to 84 months. So they have two different lender platforms. There's no retroactive interest or prepay penalties. So a lot of functionality there. And they've come on strong and have really done a good job of packaging up some good options for third-party financing. Again, I'm going to give you a reference. We've got all of these laid out with their basics and their contact information. So I'll tell you how to get that at the end of the webinar. Wells Fargo, of course, has been around for a long time. Wells Fargo has a patient finance arm. And that's, again, something Wells Fargo, obviously nationwide bank, they're almost in every community. And the third-party financing is a separate arm. So again, that's another option. Lending USA. So again, there is no enrollment fee with Lending USA. They have no recurring or admin fees. What they provide is a fixed monthly installment loan. The credit is based on the patient's credit score. They do have a 6-month no interest option up to 5 years, and pre-approval decisions are made within 30 to 45 seconds. So again, this is all pretty much based on the patient's credit score. Interest rates here range anywhere from 14.9% all the way up to 29%. No recourse, meaning nothing comes back to you from the office, and they will loan up to, from $1,000 up to $35,000. So again, there's another option for third-party financing. Comprehensive finance. This is one that's actually been around for a while. This is one where the patient signs a loan agreement for up to 60 months, and then comprehensive finance handles all of the payments. It's another interesting option. There is a one-time enrollment fee, and something worth taking a look at. They've done a pretty good job of providing a great service in dentistry, and one that might be worth taking a look at. ICare Financial. Again, this is an option in terms of being able to provide financing for your patients. You're instantly approved. There's no credit check. You can do it for same-day treatment. And again, this is this is kind of a partnership with your practice where they make it easy for patients to pay, and it opens up another option for payment. This is Patient Advantage. This may be one that you may or may not be familiar with. They will loan up to $100,000. And they do provide instant approval. They do have some plans where there's no credit check plans, where no credit check that is required. They'll loan up to 60 months, and they do have some 24-month no interest options. So again, there are plenty of options. These next are what I would call aggregators. So basically, they are middlemen that go out and find other options for patient financing. So Green Sky, again, they will loan up to $65,000. They'll provide a revolving credit line up to $25,000. And again, they have a way of going out and looking for possible lending sources depending on how much the amount is. LenPro is all over medical and dentistry. Patients can apply for financing. They help, again, find different lenders who might be willing to lend. And if one doesn't work, then they'll take them to another source and another source and another source. So they keep digging until they find something that they hope will work. So again, these are more sources where they'll dig and find, they work with a lot of different lenders to try and find a solution. And then finally, ClearGauge. This is again one that will help find different sources of financing. And so again, they will, a lot of different options that you can look at in terms of the service they provide. So these are, at the time of this webinar, these are some options for patient financing. There are others. This will change. This landscape changes on a regular basis. And what we do at the Crown Counsel is we work very hard to keep this list updated. So about every 6 months, we go back out in the marketplace, we look at who's there, who's doing what, and we keep a reference sheet updated. So at this end of this webinar, I'll give you the contact information for getting the reference sheet for all the ones that we've talked about today, with a basic outline of what they provide in their contact information, so you can select the ones that make the most sense. Again, what I would suggest is 3 forms of third-party financing to make it easier for patients to pay for treatment. Moving on is these reminders. If someone does not qualify for financing, then having a co-signer or someone that does qualify, someone that can co-sign with them. So again, that is a question that can be asked. Again, we are assuming with all the other things that we have provided that by the time we get to financial arrangements, they want to do it. It's just a matter of figuring out how they can do it. So just asking the question, is there someone who could co-sign or would be willing to co-sign with this so you can move ahead with the treatment that you want? Another option, which is similar but different, is having a relative, just a relative that opens up the account, borrows the money for them. Again, that's like having a co-signer, but it's different. Just keep in mind that the patient doesn't have to be the borrower. Someone else can be the borrower just as well. A relative or a friend pays outright. So, you know, as an option here, I didn't make this a separate one, but we're all familiar with GoFundMe. I am constantly amazed at the kinds of things that get funded on GoFundMe. So you never know, somebody could open a GoFundMe account and get their dental work paid for. So again, relatives, friends, again, you're just suggesting these options to them as ways that that they can pay. Many people have cash in their savings account, bonds, CDs, stocks. Again, if it's something that they want, a lot of times patients mistake the financial arrangements as I got to pay today, until we suggest other ways like savings or other things that they have that they've stashed away that they've saved up for. So again, this is another option to just remind them as you're having the conversation. Payday loans, again, these are ways that patients have paid for treatment. So a payday loan where they can get the money in advance and then pay it back over time. Sell something that they don't need anymore. Again, if you've been in dentistry long enough, you know how creative people can get if they want it bad enough. They can get a loan against their car or home equity. Those today are relatively easy. People use them all the time to consolidate debt, so that's certainly another option. Sell something on eBay. Again, these are ways that patients have paid for treatment that you can walk down the road and suggest or recommend. Again, the old-fashioned eBay, which is a local pawn shop, something you could sell that would help you afford the treatment. You can barter. There are still around the country, there are actually barter exchanges. But this is still, again, if there's something that they could barter for the service or go through a barter exchange, whether it's product or for a service, again, with very careful selection here. Just keep in mind, there's a lot of different ways that patients can pay for treatment. Let me talk about the layaway plan. This is one of the best financial arrangements options that you can offer. If someone does not feel like they can afford it today, go ahead and set up the financial arrangements where they start paying monthly leading up to their treatment. And once they have paid the balance, then they can come in and they can get the treatment done. So that's one that we don't think about a lot of times, but you set up the payment plans, they pay in advance, and then they can get the treatment plan. So even if that is pay in advance, up to a year or more, I mean, however you set up the financial arrangements, but they pay before the work is done. So that's a great option that you can offer patients, and it keeps them loyal because it keeps them coming back. Let's talk about how they pay for repairs or replacement. A lot of times patients will call and it's been a while and they have a crown that's come off or cracked or broken or a veneer, whatever it is. How do they pay for that? So dental warranty is rapidly becoming the standard in dentistry for taking care of repair or replacement work. Basically the warranty covers any work that is restorative work, that if anything goes wrong, it's formal, it's in writing, it's very objective, very clear. The patient is covered, whether you as the provider that did the original work, whether you're there or not, and it travels with the patient wherever they go around the country. And they can get up to 5 years worth of coverage. So again, this is rapidly becoming a standard. It makes it easy for patients to pay for treatment that was done in the past that maybe did not go so well or go as planned. So recommendation here, you can request from dental warranty what they call a roadmap, which is how do you set up the system for how patients pay later on for repair or replacement work. So you can either email Brad, Brad Tittenser at Dental Warranty at dw-corp.com, or you can just call him at 972-345-8998. Just tell him you listened to this webinar and that you would like the roadmap, the warranty roadmap, which maps out how you can set up the system so that your patients have the peace of mind on the back end of how things are covered or how they pay for things after the fact in terms of things that may not have gone exactly as planned. So with that, one of the final things we'd recommend here is to create your own savings plan. So you can create this internally in your office. This works particularly well as a way for patients that do not have insurance. As an alternative, you can run it yourself. It is not regulated if it is just for your practice and you run your own plan, where they can pay annually for a basket of services, and then it also entitles them to a discounted fee plan that you determine. So you're 100% in control. You can create your own plan and provide that as an option for patients who may not have insurance or perceive that they can't go to the dentist without insurance. It's another way for them to pay. I mentioned this earlier before, just as a suggestion, is when you're doing your financial arrangements, make sure that you separate the payment from the schedule. So this helps avoid what we call the financial flu, which is the patient calling up on the day of treatment and they're sick and they can't come in. Well, the reason they're sick is because they don't want to pay. So if you separate the payment from the actual appointment, so you create the financial arrangements and the payment dates, and they are not necessarily at the same time. So for example, you could take, we have a lot of practices now that will take a payment up front to schedule the appointment. If it's a larger treatment, they'll collect the balance on the Monday before the appointment. So let's say the appointment's gonna be on Thursday, then they'll run the balance for that on Monday, so that the patient doesn't have to worry about financial arrangements or anything when they come in. So it's patient benefit, gives them fewer things to have to worry about, and it prevents the financial flu. So that was 50 ways in rapid fire. If you would like a copy of the resource sheet with the different sources for third-party financing, there are 10 on the resource sheet that we talked about today. It will be posted with this webinar at crowncounsel.org under the training tab under webinars. That will be done later today. Or if you would like that immediately, you can just email answers@totalpatientservice.com and just put third-party finance in the subject, and make sure and include your contact information, and our team at Total Patient Service will email you right back that resource sheet, or give us a call at 1-877-399-8677, and we can get that resource sheet right out to you right away. Otherwise, it'll be posted with this webinar later today at crowncounsel.org under the training tab under webinars. So I hope that has given you some, expanded your thinking in terms of financial arrangements and the creativity that you can engage in. This recommendation I would make is getting patients to the point where they want treatment, they want to move ahead, is the key. If they don't want the treatment, there is no amount of financial options that is going to change that. That is one of the things that we focus on every day at the Crown Counsel through the resources like Skill of the Week that will keep your case acceptance skills on track, as well as total immersion through Total Patient Service. That whole mission is to take case acceptance to the next level so that patients want the treatment and you can do effective financial arrangements. So those are recommendations to stay on track with those things so that your patients want treatment. So hope that's been helpful today. Again, this webinar will be posted at crowncounsel.org later today if you'd like to share this with the rest of your team. Thanks again for joining us. We look forward to having you with us next time at our next webinar coming up. We do these on a regular basis. Have a great day. Thanks for being with us.